Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. All right, so we're going to start on our week 15 weekly reader today, okay? And this one's going to talk to you. We're actually getting kind of ready for the Civil War, okay? And we're going to start looking at ways that the North and the South parts of the United States started becoming very, very, very different, okay? Up until this point, they actually were kind of the same. Most people were farmers, and in the small towns, people were having similar jobs, just normal small town jobs and stuff. But because of the Industrial Revolution, in the North, they started changing. They started building factories, which meant more people had to move into the cities to work, which meant the cities became very large. They went from small towns to very large cities. But in the South, they stayed pretty much the same, okay? Stayed with agriculture and farming and all that kind of stuff. And so that's what we're going to be looking at in the Week 15 Weekly Reader, all right? So for those of you at home, I would like for you to read, if you have your weekly reader, read the first article, Separate Yet Interdependent. It's going to give you a little summary as to what we're going to do. And then the main article I want you to read today. It is quite a bit long, but it will be very helpful for your upcoming quiz, okay? It's this one, Industry versus Agriculture, okay? Industry versus Agriculture. And as you read that, you're going to find out all kinds of different ways that the North and South were becoming very, very different, okay? Now, after you do that, I want you to get a piece of paper, okay? You can get a piece of paper. It can be notebook paper or a blank copy paper like this. And we're going to basically take notes on it, all right? And I'm going to show you those notes right here for you to copy down and kind of go over that with you, all right? So grab a pencil, grab a piece of paper, and let's go look at our notes. All right, so right here, because I have my paper going up and down, I'm not quite sure I can fit everything onto the screen. So I'm going to divide it in half. So basically, I want you to divide your paper in half and put north at the top of the top half and south at the top of the bottom half. And what I want us to do, I'm going to fold it, and so that way I can zoom in, and you can see it just a little bit better. So let me zoom in here. Okay, so for the North, here are the things that you're going to read about in that article. You're going to find that a lot of people were living in large cities in the North because they were working in factories, okay? So all these factories being built in the cities allowed these cities to become much, much larger. You're also going to read about how many immigrants were moving to live in the North. They were not really going to the South, although some did. Most immigrants were going and living in the North because they could work in those large cities and the big factories, okay? Now, you're also going to read about tariffs. A tariff, which I have over here, is a tax on goods from other countries. So if something's made in another country and they want to sell it in the United States, we usually add a tax called a tariff. And the North, they wanted high tariffs. They wanted high taxes so that the South would want to buy from the North factories because that would make the North factories' products cheaper. And so you're going to read about that and why they wanted higher taxes, which does sound kind of odd because most of the time when we hear the word taxes, we don't want high taxes, but the North actually did. They wanted not specifically taxes, but just the tariffs on the things made from other countries because they wanted everybody to buy their own products. Now, in the North, slavery did become illegal very quickly, okay, during this time period, mainly because factories did not need slaves. It was easier to just pay the workers who lived in the large cities. It was just a little bit easier for them to just pay the workers rather than having to own slaves and having to keep up with that, okay? And so here are two words, though, that you probably want to make sure you have the definitions of. Like I said, tariff here, and then the word economy is ways people make and spend their money. And so in the North, they had what they called an industrial economy. It was based off of factories and making things and stuff like that. All right, so push pause right here if you need to finish that. And then when you're done, click unpause, and we'll show you the South, okay? Now, the South pretty much stayed the same, okay? People were living in small towns, worked on farms, and the reason why they were small towns is because people had to spread out. People had to spread out on all their different farms and stuff, okay? The main crop that they were growing was cotton, and they would take that cotton, and after they cleaned it, because of the cotton gin, they would then send that cotton to the North in those factories, and the factories in the North would change the cotton into not just cotton, but into fabric, okay? Now the South, they wanted low tariffs, okay, so that that way they could buy the cheaper products that were coming from Europe and not have to spend extra money buying the stuff that was coming from the North. Now, in the South, slavery was legal. Slavery was legal. Okay, the South felt that slavery was needed for their farms and plantations and their economy to be successful. Okay, now of course we know today that that was not true. They could be successful without slaves, but in the South they didn't feel that way back then. And so here are 4 points about slaves that you're going to read about. Okay, number one, slaves were considered property of their owner. They were owned by that person, so that person got to make every decision about them. Number two, they were forced to work. Okay, however much their owner wanted them to. If their owner did want to give them a day off or certain times off, they could, but they didn't have to, okay? Number three, they were not allowed to learn to read or write, okay? That was very important because if they learned to read or write, then that would give them more power. And of course, the slave owners did not want them to have power, so that's one of the main things that they did there, kept them from doing that. And then, of course, many families were torn apart. They didn't want families building a strong bond and being able to do things about being a slave and becoming, and maybe possibly trying to rebel and earn freedom and things like that. So that's one of the other main reasons why they tore families apart. All right, so those are your notes for today. I'll go ahead and push pause on that if you need to, so you can finish copying that, and then let's finish up. All right, so that's all you need to do today. I do want you to read that article. Once again, the article, Industry versus Agriculture. I'll give you the link online for those of you who do not have a weekly reader. I know it is a long article, but hey, you can click that button where it'll read it to you. It's very, very, very important that you do that, so that way you can catch all the details. And then, of course, I want you to make sure you've copied your notes. This will be very important. You can use it on your assignment tomorrow. Hint, hint, your assignment tomorrow to get answers and stuff from that, okay? And also you'll be able to use this to study for your quiz that's coming up later next week. Okay, so that's it for today. If you have time, go ahead and go back and complete any assignments that you haven't completed in social studies. And other than that, we will see you tomorrow. All right, you guys have a good one. See you tomorrow.